I'm Lori Groon, head of the Gateway School, and it is my very great honor to welcome Anne Hugh in conversation with us tonight. To many here, Anne is known most importantly as Michelle's mom. Michelle, along with my daughter Susanna, graduated from Gateway in 2020. It's Anne's experience looking for a school for her daughter and ultimately finding Gateway that inspired her most recent film, Confetti, which we'll discuss tonight. Among the earliest students from mainland China after the Cultural Revolution, Anne came to the United States to pursue higher education in 1979. After receiving a degree in business administration from NYU, she decided to become a filmmaker. In 1992, she took courses at NYU Film School and subsequently completed a 16 millimeter narrative film, Dream and Memory, which generated critical acclaim internationally in 1994. Anne is internationally a celebrated writer, producer, and director. Her debut film, Shadow Magic, won both the Chinese Academy Award and the Presidential Award in China for Best Film, among other international prizes. The film premiered at the 2000 Sundance Film Festival and was released by Sony Classics in 2001. Her second film, Beauty Remains, released internationally by Emerging Pictures, was a box office hit in China. Her third feature film project, Confetti, examines a mother, Lan, played by actress Zhao Zhao, struggling to leave a small town in China with a standardized schooling system for America in search of a better education for her dyslexic daughter, Mei Mei, played by Harmony Hay. We are thrilled to have Anne here tonight with us to discuss this absolutely beautiful film. Anne, welcome home.
Thank you so much, Laurie. It is like homecoming for me.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
So when Anne joined tonight, we immediately started talking about Gateway and our children's graduation.
Well, I remember that it was like yesterday almost. Mm-hmm. And I was begging everyone to find me someone who could get me into Gateway. That was like when Michelle was around 7 and 8. Mm-hmm. And, I actually wrote to Gateway from Beijing and never got an answer. And then I asked my friend who was in New York at that point, I was in Beijing, to actually knock on the door of a Gateway. And she couldn't get an answer because I guess, you just do not get you just do not do application that way. You just don't barge in without an appointment and trying to just think that you can, hey, I want to attend your school, can I be there tomorrow? It won't happen. And then when we came back, still it took a very long time for us to get in.
Well, first of all, I'm glad it did, and you certainly referenced some of that in the film. I know you've said the film was inspired by Gateway. Can you talk a little bit about that? You talked about your journey here, but how did Gateway? How did that go the other way? How did you start thinking about creating a film from this?
Well, that was like a while after I already, after Michelle already settled in Gateway, and my major struggle and stress over if Gateway would work for Michelle was already over. So I accepted Gateway as the place for Michelle, for good or for bad, and for whatever the result would be and how she would turn out to be. So at that point, I would just go with the flow, and then Salzman, Ms. Salzman, and she had always been so helpful, and she was portrayed in this film as the headmaster. And so we were having lunch, and she asked me, we were talking about basically how, to help Gateway, I guess, to raise funds and so on and so forth. So I said, why don't I make a film for you? So she must have found that it was like extremely odd. And after a while, wrote this script. It was pretty fast, actually. It came about in about like just a couple of months.
Wow.
That draft came up, so I shared it with Caroline, and
Mhm.
after a couple of weeks, and so I run into her in the morning, while taking Michelle to school, and
Mhm.
I saw her. So I said, "Did you read the script?" And she couldn't stop laughing. She was like laughing wildly. It's like she couldn't stop, and she said it was hilarious. And blah, blah, blah. So I think it was because, for example, the story,
Yes.
the reality was one way, and it was about you, right?
Mhm.
But when you were portrayed in a different way, it's like dramatized
I
and
know.
shortened, and also fictionalized. It was a
It,
familiar and a strange experience.
it,
So
it
I
must,
guess
yeah.
yeah, so she must have felt, wow, it's like, I mean, it was not me, but I do recognize some stuff there that was about me.
Seeing
So,
yourself in the third person must be very strange.
yeah, I mean, I'm wondering, how did you guys feel about it? Because in a sense, you could tell it was about you guys, but it was not really, like exactly, really
Um,
you.
One of the things I think that's so beautiful about the film is this is a story of a parent seeking what's best for their child. And I know that story. I know the journey. It was
Mhm.
not as dramatic as yours, but the idea of wondering, will this work? What do I need to do to make it work? In many ways is a universal one for families with children who learn differently. So in that sense, it resonated with me. Absolutely, I saw Gateway because this was a wonderful school, but I also resonated with the story of the mother. I'm wondering, speaking of that, there's a wonderful line that spoke to me in the film. The line is, "We can't escape our fates." And this story shows that we actually can. Can you talk a little bit about that, about how, thanks to her mom, how Mei escaped the fate that at the very least her mother saw for her initially?
If I remember correctly, because like well, there's so many lines, and I don't really particularly remember which person said which line. But I think it was like by the headmaster in China, told the mother that just accept like your
That's
daughter,
exactly right.
because I mean that's her fate. Why bother anymore? So but I guess in a sense, like it's like in my life, I realized many times that what is our fate? What is the meaning of life? I mean, that question probably, is asked by all of us very often. And
Mhm.
so eventually I settled with one answer. That is, your fate is what you make of it. Just like the meaning of life is what you make of it. So you
Mhm.
can probably just, try and then pursue your dream, and then you will see what your fate is providing you.
Mhm.
And for this mother, I guess it's like a desperation, because her own fate was sealed, because she couldn't read. She thought it was sealed.
Mhm.
She couldn't read, she couldn't write, and she grew up to be a person had to hide, and she lived in stigma. And so she understands what shame is all about. And so she didn't want that to happen to her daughter, but she has absolutely um, no means to make any change until she heard about this possibility from this American teacher. And
Mhm.
I think that's why it's so important for me to make this film, and also it's so important that I give all my effort to raise awareness. I think once you know, then it's no longer an issue. Like, I mean, of course, it's a huge challenge to still go
Mhm.
forward, but once you know, you can make a decision. And that's when once the mother knows there's a solution, she would go to the world's end to make that change, to make
Yeah.
it happen, like most of the mothers would do. Like so many people ask me, like this mother is so possessed. I mean, so obsessed. Okay, and but the thing is, as a mother, we all know that this is like a mother does. Normally when you see a possibility for your daughter, especially to change her fate, you would just do anything. So, I mean, then she just quit her job and do all that thinkable stuff and came to this country because she's determined and then, to make it work. And then, as a matter of fact, and then she found actually, it's not what she had imagined, but it's something else. That's like what life normally offers us. It's not like the solution you are looking for. Just like for Michelle, I thought she would be, Gateway would be helping her to catch up with the mainstream and to become a normal student. But in the end, I found, she would never be normal because she's so special in her own way. But she can catch up with the mainstream, curriculum. But you just have to give her a little bit more time. You just have to teach her in a way she would be able to understand. And also you have to really celebrate her difference. That's more important for her.
Yeah.
That's the most important thing. Yeah, I mean, so we really know, right now, dyslexic people, they're like so brilliant because they're dyslexic. It's a talent. Yeah. I don't have. So so now Michelle is still different, but she was like doing average on the mainstream level, which I think it's already very good. But that doesn't matter. Knowledge is not something that you really just have to learn from one way. And so that's, I guess, in a way, you change your fate by looking at the world from a different angle, and then suddenly you find there are many solutions instead of just one standard. And in a way, I think we're all sort of like domesticated by the expectation and the standard provided by the society. And, so this film actually is really about creativity. It's really about celebrating people who are different. So I guess in that way, you already change your fate. I think Michelle's fate is changed. And also Gateway is changing people's fate.
Changed,
Gateway changes kids' fate, that's for sure.
Without question, I mean, that's what Gateway does. It's interesting you raised this question because this is one of the ones I had written down. Throughout the film, Lam is warned that Mei Mei will never be normal. And she appears to bristle at this. She comes to terms with the concept of normal finally, saying to Mei Mei at the end of the story, who wants to be normal? And I think just as you've described, this character learns a great deal about the limitations of normal and how much more there is to life besides one standard mainstream way of learning.
Exactly. I think, normal is, again, it's like what mainstream, most of the people, it's like the accepted standard that's supposed to be normal. And in the past, anyone who is not normal, I guess, will be marginalized by the mainstream. But nowadays, the trend has been very different. Being unique, being individual, being independent. You have your own voice. To have a voice of your own, that is the new normal. Because I mean, who wants to be normal? It's so boring, right? I mean, you say the same language like most of the other 90% of people are saying. Who wants to hear that? Any creativity is a deviation from the normality, from the known. So I mean, if you are normal, meaning you are not being creative. So in that sense, I feel. But we didn't get to this point easily. It's like it's a long journey, and it's a resolution after you learn all those possibilities, and you pay a heavy price emotionally, and to eventually get to that point. And the film actually didn't end this way in the beginning. It had many endings, and not. I mean, it's like, how are you going to, many possibilities. I mean, if you are thinking like, oh, okay, so the girl eventually caught up, right? Okay, and she became a great student, or the mother somehow, united with the father, and so they're all happily living together, or I mean, there are many possibilities. But then the thing is, I really like, just like in life, we normally have an open structure. It's not like just a one solution, and but life is so multifaceted. So I mean, it's like not until in life you may not have a way out until you really take action to do something. And in film and in the artwork, not until you provided with a more advanced or cool ahead of time kind of message, the work just wouldn't go. You know, the work will not settle. You look at this work, you know, it doesn't finish. I mean, it doesn't provide that inspiration to people. Then this work doesn't stand. So you just have to force yourself. You just have to keep on pushing until you get there.
If we can, I'm going to talk a little bit as I listen to you. You know, and I'm thinking about the film. Of course, I'm thinking about Gateway. I'm thinking about parents with children with learning challenges and learning differences. There's so many moments in this film that speaks to the mother's impatience, the sense that Mei has very little time. And this is based on a reference early on that if you don't catch it and take action early, there'll be no time to recover. I suspect many parents, certainly myself, understand and appreciate that impatience, the need to have challenges addressed and corrected as soon as possible. Was this your experience? Did you, I mean, were you, how would you compare yourself to Lan in terms of how they approach their daughters, your daughter and her daughter?
Well, if there's one thing that is in sync, in common, so perfectly a match between the character Lan and me, it was the character, you know, like being totally stubborn and persistent and earnest, intense. You know, like I think that's earnest, intense, and impatient. It can be a very quiet current, a very strong current inside your heart. It just drives you, right? It cooks you all the time. And because this issue is not settled, so you're worried. You constantly want to find a solution about it. You're just, you know, like obsessed by this. And whatever you can do, you just have to do it and just keep on doing. And it may seem to be totally unreasonable, like almost a little, you know, crazy. But not until you're that crazy, you wouldn't be able to get things done. Unfortunately, you know, if you just go the normal way and the things are, you know, trying to work things out, there's merit and there's wisdom in that. I totally agree. But many times, if you really feel like this is such an urgent issue and there's no tomorrow and today has to be done, and you push it and it will get done. And of course, it's very stressful. And you make people around you stressful, but the thing is that you get it done much faster. You know, so I mean, in that sense, I feel when it came to Michelle's case, you know, like I was always super, you know, like intense, you know, like super tense about her situation. You know, I just felt, you know, if this doesn't get taken care of, and tomorrow it will be much more difficult. So there's no tomorrow. You just got to get it done today. And while I was making film the same way, you know, cutting the film and promoting the film, and every step, it's like right now, today. So that speaks about me being impatient. The good thing is like I'm highly effective. The bad side is, I mean, it's a double, you know, edged sword. Yeah, the bad side is bad for your health, it's bad for your working environment, and it's bad for your family, you know, for people around you. But I think, you know, like moms would be able to understand, you know.
You've talked a little bit about this, how, you know, this story really just tells it's the almost incredible journey of a mother and a daughter with these insurmountable challenges that they overcome, each in their own ways. Are there particular ways that what's similar to your story, and what's different from your story compared to Lan and Mei? What are some of what are the common threads?
You know, I'm not illiterate, right? So I can write and I could read from day one. I mean, from youth. But in order to make this character more sympathetic, and also to understand her motivation. And so you want to make her went through the same experience, therefore she knows, but she understands. I mean, she's holding this secret, and she has this stigma, and because I mean, she didn't think she would have any chance in life, and so it was a deep motivation, and therefore if her daughter would be able to read and write, to her it's almost like a life or death kind of a situation. So you want to put that character in that spot, to give the tension and the drama to the journey she's going to take. So, but for me, I did feel that stress as a mother without all that, as you know, like if my daughter can be helped, I would do anything to help her. So the rest of the journey is that my journey, basically, when I learned, and actually the way Michelle was discovered to have dyslexia was exactly the same story that you watched on the film. She was in that class, and the first class I was there because I mean the kindergarten was taking her, and it was the first class, and they wrote many words on the blackboards, and there were like probably 20 kids sitting there, and so this Australian teacher, in her kindergarten in Beijing, said, who can find W's among those words, right? And so some kids found some, and then there were like very hidden ones, small ones, floating around. And teacher said, well, here is a toy. Okay, here's a shining toy or a stick, a magic stick. So whoever can find 2 more or 5 more, and who will have this stick. And Michelle, it was her first class, and she was shy. She didn't want to go up. But when she saw the prize, she went there and she circled all of them. She has this, even today, she has this hyper focus kind of ability. When she finds things like zoom, it's like zoom. So I mean, a normal person would have to look. She would go in there, she zoom up everything in a second. Okay, so she zooms in them up. So basically, that was the situation in the film. She just got more W's, and then the teacher told me after a while that your daughter has dyslexia. I said, what do you mean? What does that mean? And then she said, she didn't explain what that means, because she said it's just, they learn their logics are different a little bit. And she said, the reason I know is because my husband and my 2 sons are dyslexic. So she could tell, some early symptoms. If she was not, married to this guy and have 2 sons, she wouldn't have been able to know, right? So after that, just like in the film, Thomas said, well, I have a sister, like so on and so forth, and she's dyslexic, so I know. And then they cannot tell. I mean, often they're confused about left and right and la. And so that was, it's just those things in life you pick and you dramatize and you give it a situation slightly different and you rearrange them. But those little things, they're there. It's like just how you're going to use them. You can repurpose them and
that's the role of the playwright.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So
can you talk a little bit about some of the differences for a person living with dyslexia in China versus the US?
I think in US, dyslexic, although supposed to be already a known sort of like knowledge to a lot of people here, but actually you still need to raise a lot of awareness, because a lot of people still don't know. It's like just very small percentage of the people who really understand what dyslexic is all about.
Mhm.
And this is supposed to be the most developed country in terms of dyslexic research and dyslexic, education about dyslexic children and awareness.
Mhm.
And talking about around the world, I think in Europe you probably have some. And in China, if I say zero, it's not an absolute zero, but it was near zero. It was like almost zero.
What was there?
So the film, when the headmaster said dyslexia,
Oh,
what
right.
was that? I mean, is that contagious? I
Yeah.
mean, it was specifically, that's what they said.
Wow.
Because in Chinese, dyslexia, meaning 湿毒症, by
Mhm.
sound, it's like a wet, poisonous condition. I mean, you could imagine. I mean, that's like the sound translation. Okay. So, but then people would ask the question, is it contagious? I mean, it is supposed to be in the school, So, while my producer was releasing this film in China, and they got some Q&A from Department of Education and some big people coming in. I said, what is it? They never heard of it.
That's
And there was probably one or two research places in China, maybe a few professors or people, but that's not the thing. Their research, it's like they're a spectrum of stuff they're researching. So there's absolutely no existing institution or school that is available to provide help. And so that's why I feel this film right now has a life of itself almost, and it travels. We're also trying. We're doing this 1,000 community screening movement nationwide around country. The only thing is that a film can do is to promote awareness. I mean, I cannot provide solutions. I mean, you guys provide solutions, but I need to. I mean, what I can do is to raise awareness, and finally, I hope the word will reach to those people they really need to know, and then that will be the life-changing moment for them. And there are just so many of them around the world. Just imagine. I mean, like a 10% or 20% of the population. This is the biggest secret in the world, and we only have a handful of teachers that are trained to deal with this problem. And that's why when the film was at Columbia University, teachers of college, and they promoted this to 3 million teachers around the country, and so like special education teachers. And so the first tier, I think, is for teachers to really understand, this requires special training, to help children. And the best thing we did is to engage New York State Senator to propose a bill to evaluate, to make it a mandate to evaluate kids from kindergarten to 2nd grade, and for early identification, and so that the help could be provided. I think that's like making real change. But your guys are, like the first responders, and you will have more and more children coming to you. You just need to, keep on, I guess, doing great work, and having many, many children coming to you.
Yeah, no, I thank you for that. I agree. Certainly the importance of being specially trained and recognizing that there are many children who learn differently, but if you're going to be a slightly atypical learner, you need people who have been appropriately trained, who know who this child is, and who can recognize them, just as Thomas did in the film.
Yeah.
I have 1 or 2 more questions. The next one is very film related, very film specifically related. Can you talk a little bit about the title Confetti?
Oh.
Yeah. How how does that tie in with your vision for your characters, for the story?
Okay.
Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah. Well, it is a film language in a sense. The metaphor was that Mei Mei, as a dyslexic kid, her world is full of colors and full of magics, and it's full of confetti. It's like composed of so many beautiful magical elements. But when we are introducing these elements, if you could still remember, the first time was that she was in the classroom looking out behind the bars, a garbage can. And in that garbage can, there are confettis blown into the wind, right? So the first shot is this girl looking out of the bar, of the window. And the second was that you see this garbage can, and with the confetti was floating. The third shot, and you cut back to the classroom, and the teacher was calling her name, and you can see she was marginalized. She was like left out, left behind, and it was a sad situation. Everyone looked at her, and she was by the window. And then the last shot of this specific series scene, it's like a scene, was you see against the very gray sky, the fog, and you have some very kind of like emotional confetti just flying away in a sense. So this is the first time you're suggesting, that's her world, but however, it doesn't belong to her. And you have this music to tell you it's actually emotional problem. And then the next time you saw this happening was that, when Helen came into the room and Mei Mei was playing on computer, and Helen was saying, "Hey, I told you not to touch that." And what was that? And Mei Mei turning the computer around saying, "See what I created for you." And Helen was shocked, so that was confetti coming from nowhere, because that was the confetti Mei Mei remembered that she saw, right? And so Helen realized this kid was talented because no one taught her anything, just like Michelle. I've never taught her anything about computer. She figured out everything like PhD level. So, she's doing Twitch, she's doing, like providing online service to comfort people. And she's doing all those great things. And then no one ever taught her anything. So that was the moment that this was touched and talked about as a confetti being the metaphor of the film. And then, then you see it in the very end when the film ended, the last shot of the film. You saw, like a title against this card, and then Helen was walking into that world of Mei Mei's, and it's full of hope and confetti and magics. So basically, you're trying to, very particularly, we paid attention to minimize the use of color in almost a lot of shots. You don't really see color until you really need to see color. When you see color, every time you see color, it means something. So it's like that's film language. Okay, but I'm glad you caught it, because what was confetti to you? I'm like, because you must have felt something that, it's more than just a title, right? But yet, it's like you couldn't really grasp it, but it was meaningful. So what was confetti to you, I wonder?
I think you touched upon it, which is the idea of this magic that things can be created from nothing, and where it comes, and what these streamers can do, and where they come from, and that represents a child's mind, specifically children who learn differently. You don't know where it can go, you don't know what's going to happen to it, and it's literally interspersed and woven throughout the film. So for me, it was a metaphor of the creativity of a child who learns differently. In this case, a child with dyslexia. I do have, if you have time, a few more questions. You brought up Helen, and the character of Helen changes quite dramatically as the film progresses. And it seemed to me that this is a woman who really began to look at a child with learning differences quite differently. The way she approached Mei Mei and Lan at the beginning of the film is quite different from the end. She was their strongest advocates. I'm wondering if you could talk about that a little bit. How children, how people with learning differences impact those around them. And that's
First of all, Amy Irving is a fantastic actress, and she's so well trained, and she, really enriches the character in a way that I guess only she could do it. And her character actually was a little bit sketchy, and it needs a lot of body language to really bridge all those, the character development and to make them like a logical. And in the script says basically she lost everything, her son to an accident, and also her, physical condition was like she's wheelchair bound. And yet she's just like many New Yorkers and woman of her age, like very sharp, highly independent, highly critical, independent thinking. However, deep down in their heart, full of tenderness and full of love and compassion, but very little patience. And very, very can be very aggressive when necessary. So with that kind of, and with that kind of character in the beginning, she agreed to accept them from Thomas, thinking that I'm alone, so I can have a helper and with a kid and just helping me out. But then she realized, they don't speak English. I mean, that's not going to be helpful. And also then she realized the cultural difference, the way they eat really pisses her off, because that part I can identify, because I personally have problem with people who, who don't have good table manners in a way. It's like loud and then putting things around. And so I could feel that, so I feel like that's a real character's kind of a trait. And she's highly intellectual as well. So I think I can identify that character very well. And the next time is that when she realized, and when she took them to the school, and she, of course, with her compassion, with her love as a person, she would still help, although reluctantly. It's not that she enjoys it, but she will just do it, right? So she took them to school, so she did her part. And then she's also responsible enough to try to find them another place to take them in. But at the same time, she found this kid is talented but needs help. And she took them to school, and she found, oh, this is not right. This is not fair. Like many women in New York that I see, when they see certain things are not right, they would just, jump to it, and they would just forget anything else. They just fight for it. I see so many friends of mine, or neighbor of mine, or colleagues of mine, they're just doing that, right? So she got involved because of her independent thinking and independent and her critical way of living. And so she got into that fight for them without her even knowing it. And once she's in fight, she killed everything, all the possibilities. So now she has to, provide a solution. So she had to provide a solution. So she was really looking around for a school for them to go in. And then she did the research, and she brought them there, and she just got dragged in further and further, and then she was just, involuntarily gotten, involved. And in the process, I mean, she has been providing, she has been giving, but in the process, she has developed this bond with the kid, I guess, and that, and also at a time when the mother and the daughter really wanted to go back to China. And then she suddenly realized now she's going to be alone again.
Yeah.
And that wasn't easy for her. So
Yeah.
I think then the rest is history basically. And they have stayed, and then Mei is still around, and so so the entire story was told through in the format of a book that she's writing. So in the end, she's saying, I ended up writing a different book. It's about Mimi's world. In the beginning, I'm sure she was writing a great book, but it was about her tragedy, it's about her son and all that stuff. It's all personal and her own story. But in the end, through this process, she worked out her sorrow. She embraced, new possibilities by helping people. And then she suddenly sees the promise of other people's life, what other people's life can actually bring to her, in a sense, she for the thing that she helped them. It's almost like a trade-off without her understanding and knowingly doing that, but in the end, it helped her in a deeper way, like she had anticipated.
It's there's this wonderful. I found this wonderful analogy at one point when she at the beginning and end when she. There's a moment when she's speaking about the broken shower head, and then at the end she sees it fixed. So I thought that was sort of a metaphor for her own journey and how she's come to terms with things. It will be all right in the end. Things will work out. The question, you speak a lot about. Well, you spoke just now about how Helen wants to help them, and you certainly. Lan goes through this, and you and I have certainly gone through this. What advice? This is not about the film per se, but what advice would you give parents that have a child with dyslexia or learning differences when deciding on the right school for their child? What are I mean, you've talked about the fierce determination and patience and focus that a mother feels for her child. But if we were to step back, what do you think a parent should look for when they're beginning to wonder whether their child is best served, and how can they find a school that's right for them?
Well, unfortunately, if their kids are really dyslexic to the point that they need professional help, you don't want your kid to just power through by themselves. And you really need to find professionals to help you. That is to find good professional schools. And, Michelle is very lucky to have found Gateway. And but there are there are just a few of them, unfortunately, around the world and also in this country even. And one of the sponsors, one of the hosts we have in our community screening movement is Bridge School in Staten Island. That's supposed to be the only public charter school for special education in the entire United States. It's like unbelievable. So I think the next thing is really to begin having more public schools, providing special educations. Because if you think 10 or 20% of the population, they need help, a few private schools are not necessarily the solution, because all those kids, they really need what Michelle had. And, I just feel like, my heart hurts thinking about those children. They have no way out. They're like school, or they're like Michelle before. Where would they go? And Michelle was in a public school before she was in Gateway. And also in the film, you saw what happened to her. And, in the public school, they're trying to provide special education classes, like you pull a kid out of the main classroom and then to small class, like 1 hour a day. And that didn't work. That really didn't work. That really damaged the kids' self-worth and confidence in a big way, because she or he was made to feel different every day by pulled away, and when coming back and she's further behind, you know, it just really doesn't work. You need to have a very safe environment, and for kids to feel we're all the same, we're all okay, and not me different, and I'm trying to feel I'm not different, and we're still friends. I can still be your friend. I'm still worthy to be your friend.
Yeah.
Now the environment would really just have to be all the kids were the same. Were the same, and I think the biggest gift that Gateway gave Michelle was that every day she was told, "You are the best. You are the best." The kids are always the best. Okay, they're the best. So they're just super confident. Everywhere she went, I'm the best. And Michelle's the best. Regardless that's true or not. Okay, I mean, one day we'll find out there are many best people around, right? Okay, and but doesn't really matter because she's not insecure. She's not like having this emotional problem. And if you're confident, you will be able to learn much faster. And instead of just giving up, regardless how good you are, and you just you couldn't even look at people in their eyes. I mean, what kind of life is that? So I think when people ask me, what actually Gateway really, how they actually teach, because they want to get a few quick tips and then to teach their kids or just to fix the problem. It's a very complex kind of a thing. It's not just a little here, a little there, how to read. It's not about that. It's really about you have to be confident about yourself. That's number one. And then number two, accept yourself. You are a flower that opens in the summer. You don't try to force it to open in the spring. You just have to wait until it's summer. And then at the same time, cultivate all her other talents and find out what those talents are, and you accelerate that. So, and also when it comes to traditional reading and writing, and build some building blocks, instead of trying to catch up, you don't try to catch up, you just try to own what you have learned, and so you have some things very solid in your head. And you guys also provided strategies, when you write a essay, for example, 1 and a 2 and a 3, so it's all very patterned, so they can just remember that pattern. So everywhere she goes, when she deals with a writing thing, so she would right away start thinking about that pattern. And so she would never go too far off from the traditional logics, because their logics are everywhere, right? That's one thing good about them, is that they have their own logics. But then for other people to understand you, you have to follow other people's logic. So basically Gateway told them, the logic is 1, 2, 3. So they remember 1, 2, 3, and then they can do the rest, in other ways. So I feel it's a total body of many things. So to those parents, I just feel, it's a very big question, not that something I can, I can really give a solution. All I can do is to raise awareness. So there are people who came to me, said, if I had watched this film, I wouldn't have divorced, because we had this child, and the mother and I, we constantly fought. Okay, so we thought it was mine or her mistake, and we couldn't really live with that, so we divorced. And another person comes to me saying, my son, after watching this film in 2 weeks, came to me saying, "Mom, I'm not okay with myself. I know who I am now. I'm fine. So it's not that I'm dumb. It's I'm just different, and I'm okay being different." So it changes people's thinking. I think that's the most important thing. So if parents, how they're going to deal with the situation, I think if they watch this film, that was my solution. One of the solutions. Because I cannot teach the way you teach.
Well, Anne, you started out this evening by talking about how a film changes lives, and certainly you've ended on a very similar note. the story you tell about both a mother and a daughter who travel what feels like an impossible journey to find the right home, literally and figuratively, to overcome challenges and basically fill their bag with the necessary tools to be truly successful in life, is powerful and beautiful. It is without question what a good specialized education does. It's what Gateway does. We're so grateful that you found, we're so grateful you found Gateway. I'm grateful I found Gateway for my daughter. And I want to thank you for giving us this time tonight, for sharing your insights to both the film and for being a mom of a daughter who learns differently and who learns beautifully because of those differences. And we're very grateful for you and for your film.
You know what, like tonight it's like going home for me. And I feel like everyone I know, and it's very intimate and it's very close. It's like talking to old friends. And I got so much to thank you guys for that, like all the teachers are just so fantastic. And, like Michelle couldn't become who she is today, if she didn't come to Gateway. Basically, you changed her life, therefore you changed my life as well. I mean, that's not just a tongue-in-cheek talk. I mean, that's true. And so basically, I'm glad that in a way that because I know as a parent, while I was in Gateway during all those years, Michelle was there for 8 years. I didn't really participated much of the school's activities or helped out going on my way to really, be useful to the school. And I was very busy making the film, but however, I made a promise to Caroline Salzman that I'm going to make this film happen, and I'm going to give this film, to Gateway as a small gift. Okay, and I hope it will somehow help you to explain to other parents down the road as to what is really the solution and what you should expect from Gateway and also your children. So in that sense, I'm glad you gave this film a chance and then bring me back, and let's stay in touch. And I mean, so many people I want to thank, like Jennifer, especially from very beginning to very end, she's holding the rope, to make this happen. So it's really fantastic. And thank you for having me, Laurie.
Oh, thank you for being a part of it. Between Jennifer and Carolyn and the rest of the Gateway community, we're grateful for you. We're glad you've been encouraged to write this and share it with the world, and let people know about both Gateway and the lovely journey that people who learn differently can make, even if it feels hard at first. We have a few minutes left. If there's any, I'll check the chat and Q&A to see if anybody comes on, if anyone has questions. Otherwise, we will let people enjoy the rest of their evenings. All right. I think I don't think anybody can add to some of the wisdom you've shared tonight. So
I'm sure they can.
Oh, wait, we have a one question. I was going to ask that actually, and I decided to skip it. The question is, and I'm going to add mine to it. The question is, what is the meaning of the walnuts? And the question I had in the initially that I passed up on was, can you talk about the scene when Lamb finds the walnut in her suitcases and smashes it? As the parent of a child with learning differences, what is she going through? So can you talk a little bit about the walnut in the film?
Sure. In the Chinese culture, whatever you eat will, support part of your body. And the walnut, I guess, because of the shape of it, it's really like a brain. And so if you think you want to, if you feel like, because she feels she's dumb, and the mother feels she's dumb, right, herself, and it's like she's not smart. Therefore, she constantly wants to eat, walnuts to beef up her her brain, so for her daughter. So the family thing is about this walnut. And so she has to bring them to the States because it's like a medication. Okay. So for her, that's the medication. It's her hope to get better. And so when she smashes it, basically there's no hope, like she couldn't get better. So I think that was the metaphor for the whole thing. Right.
And we have another question, which is terrific. It's not so much about learning challenges or sorry about the film. I just lost it. It was here a minute ago. Do you have any? I think it was. Do you have any particular tips for someone who's thinking of going into starting a film career?
Oh, well, start shooting.
You know what? I just found the rest of it. Do you have any tips for a new filmmaker who is just graduating from college? There's the question.
Well, if you had already had a film education, and I think film career is probably the worst career one can choose. I don't know whether you were at the premiere that night, Laurie, and you heard Andrew Young. I mean, the first question he said was like, why did you want to become a like independent filmmaker? I mean, it was like so difficult and none of them were made any sense and all that. Basically what he was saying to me, I hear, was, condolence, before, it's really condolence. And so I said, well, condolence back to you, like a politician, because I see, like politician probably was the worst career in the end. But it all comes down in the end about a passion. I mean, if you have that passion, regardless, how promising and how difficult, how challenging it is, you would still just want to pursue. Realistically, I think, like based on my own experience, is that you got to have your first short film made, and then you show that film to, show it around and to generate some possibilities. And then right away, you try to write a script, a feature script, in the best way you can. So you have a property, once you have a property, you can build around it. I think you have something you own. And you can draw, like resources around it, and you begin to build.
This question came from the parent of an alum who is currently in film school. So that was appreciated. Thank you.
Okay.
Let me just take a quick look if there are any other questions or chats. All right. Well, we said we would go an hour, and we were 4 minutes before. Gateway is nothing if not efficient when it comes to time. And I'm going to thank you again for your time, for your creativity. It has been an absolutely enjoyable hour. Thank you for sharing it with us.
Yeah, it's a pleasure, really, seriously.
And yes, we will help spread the word. There's nothing more important. Yeah,
I'll be here again next time you do a screening for your next grade. Okay.
Thank you. And for your next film too.
Yeah, next grade. I mean, yeah, I know. All right, next film as well. All right.
Thank you so much. Have a wonderful evening, everybody.
Thank you everyone for coming. And thank you, Laurie and Jennifer and Ashley.